Sports Fantasies with Miller and McCarty.
Welcome back. Sports Fantasies with Miller and McCarty doing some Dynasty NFL mock drafts, non-super flex edition. Coming out here a little strong. Getting excited about the NFL even though we're still, a few months away from starting. 7-ish maybe.
We got a minute.
Yeah, we'll go back and forth like we always do here, though. You let me have the first pick during the rookie draft, so I'm going to return the favor and let you have the first pick here in this one.
Well, it's kind of you, sir. Well, with the first pick, then, hang on a second. There it is, yes. It's got to make it official. With the first pick in our little Dynasty 2-round mock draft, I would have to take Justin Jefferson here. Still just 24 years old. He's averaged a little over 16 yards per catch for his career. He hit 1,000 yards last year in just 10 games. We'll see what happens with the quarterback situation. I mean, I think no matter what, he's quarterback proof, but hopefully Cousins is back for another couple of years because they seem to get things done. But no matter who you have there, he's going to produce. So Justin Jefferson to me is hands down number one.
All right. Can't hate that. So for me, coming at number 2, also going to go wide receiver here. Going to go little CD Lamb, also 24 years old. In most of our leagues, he led our wide receivers in scoring with 405, which worked out to about 24 a game or just under 24 a game. I don't see that changing. He also seems to be a little bit quarterback proof. Dak has missed some time, and CD has still performed and produced. So CD at 2 would be where I would go.
I can't hate that. There was a couple years, right, where we were trying to figure out is Lamb. I think everybody knew he had the potential to be that elite top of the league wide receiver, and then finally last year broke out and truly took it to the next level. So I had him at 3. So then my number 2 on the board, number 3 pick here, I would take Jamar Chase if he were sitting here, 23 years old. 3 seasons, 29 touchdowns, 3,700 yards. He's got the Joe Burrow factor if Burrow can stay healthy for more than half the seasons. But I'd be happy with Jamar Chase at 3.
Yeah, I was between Chase and Lamb. I just think Lamb is going to be able to be more consistent. Just my thought. I think Chase relies a little more on the deep ball. And again, we saw when Burrow was out, Chase still did all right this year, but his numbers definitely took a hit.
I had Lamb at 3, yeah.
The next guy that I'm looking at here is of course, a guy that McCarty hates because he wasn't taken in the first round. Amon St. Brown, also 24 years old, was number 3, the number 3 scoring wide receiver in our leagues this year at 331 points. Worked out to about 21 points per game. I think he is somebody who, I know he's young, and I know it's probably crazy to say, but I think he's quarterback proof as well. Just because of the way that he gets a lot of his yards. He gets a lot of yards after catch. Touchdowns are a bonus for him, but he's going to get a lot of receptions and a lot of yak. So I got St. Brown off the board at number 4.
You're correct. I've been down on St. Brown over the years, mainly just because of where he was drafted. But I've finally come around after last season. So he was actually number 6 on my board, which for me is pretty high for him. So I guess then at number 5, I would go the first running back off the board, Bijan Robinson, 22 years old. I love me some Bijan. He came in so hyped up his rookie year that obviously I don't think he hit that hype. But at the end of the day, he was still pretty darn good. 4.6 yards per carry. He had 976 rushing yards, another 490 through the air, 58 receptions, played all 17 games. So I think there's big things ahead, especially, again, if Atlanta can find a quarterback at some point.
Yeah, I can't hate that, although I like that you went there because that leaves the running back that I think should be the top running back off the board, and that's Breece Hall. 22 years old, was second in our scoring at running back
Yeah.
just loves to play the Jets chant
Sorry,
whenever he can.
it's mandatory. I play that. Go ahead.
290 points in our scoring, just over 17 a game. And that was with Zach Wilson playing quarterback for most of the season, or some other guy is going to be on the waiver wire. So I think if he gets a season of Aaron Rodgers, I think those numbers go up. Or if they just get a different quarterback who is better than one of the dumpster fires they had last year. So I'm actually shocked that you took Bijan over Brees. Of course, I do know that you like Bijan a lot more than I do. Bijan was a little further down my list. But yeah, I'll take
I,
Brees Hall here.
I do love me some Hall, especially if you're in a PPR league. I mean, he's a monster. Next up, then I'm going to go wide receiver again. A guy that, again, you talked about Aaron Rodgers. We're going back-to-back Jets here. Garrett Wilson, 23 years old. So this is with him having absolutely no quarterback for the last 2 years. 2,100 yards, 178 catches, 13 points per game. Nothing that blows you out of the water stat-wise there, but considering that's coming from Zach Wilson and others, again, you put Rodgers in there for a healthy season or any decent quarterback, and those numbers are going to start to go up drastically.
Yeah, I can't hate on that at all. That does leave me another running back, which surprises me because typically you are running back heavy when we do these. But I'm going to take myself some Jahmyr Gibbs, 21 years old, 243 points in our leagues last year, averaged 16, just over 16 a game. He wasn't fully healthy, but he also was underutilized intentionally by the Lions to start the year. So I like Gibbs. I think his upside is huge, and I would be thrilled to get him at this point in the draft.
Yeah, this might shock you, but I actually had Gibbs ahead of Brees Hall in my rankings.
That
I had
doesn't
Gibbs
shock me, but it is a slight surprise because I think you own Brees Hall in most of the leagues we're in. So
I do. All right, then. So number 9, and that's where I have him on my board. Although I've got a little more concerns. Of course, a couple of years ago, this was going to be the best running back in the history of the league. After a couple of injury-prone seasons, he's gone down, but I still think he's got huge potential. And if he's healthy, could be the number one back. That's Jonathan Taylor, 25 years old. So 25. We talked about that. Typically, by 28, you're wanting to trade him off. So it depends on your league. If it's a complete startup, you might not go with a 25-year-old running back here, and I get that. If you're competitive, then he gives you another 3-4 years of good ball. Receptions have come down a little bit too, but again, at the end of the day, we've seen what he can do when he's healthy and he plays 17 games. He leads the league in rushing. So it just depends on which version you're going to get. There's a little risk here, obviously.
yeah, but I think when you're talking about running backs, I think that risk is always there, right?
For sure.
Now, of course, with the way the NFL is nowadays, it's probably a little more risk with running backs, especially if they don't get a lot of receptions or you're not a PPR league, because running has kind of went by the wayside and most teams are doing it by committee now. But with all that being said, I'm going to go running back here again and go Travis Etienne, or however we say his last name on this show. He was the number 3 running back in our format, also 25 years old. I'd say the one thing that separates him from Taylor a little bit is his ability to catch the ball in the backfield. They've both had their issues with injuries, and another guy that I know Dub has some stake in. So
Yeah, I like Travis a lot. You know that. And you talked about the injury. The thing that I like about him now, though, we've had 2 straight fully healthy seasons. So he seems to have put that behind him, which means, he'll come out and get hurt week 1 this year probably. But he's been healthy the last couple of years. All right, so number 11, I like going young guys in dynasty drafts. And this guy's still semi-young, but in terms of our list, he's on the older side. But I'd be happy to get A.J. Brown at 11, still 26 years old. last 2 years, 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns. 3 of the last 4 seasons, he's over 17 points per game. So A.J. Brown, I think at 11, you'd be pretty good to get that there.
Yeah, I mean, that's right about where I had him on my list too. So I can't fault you for that. And at pick 12, I'm going to go Homer, and I know I could get this guy at pick 24 because you're not going to touch a quarterback in this draft. But I'm going to take JA17, Mr. Josh Allen. He's been the top scorer in our league 2 out of the last 3 years, and the year he wasn't, he was number 2 behind Patrick Mahomes. So as much as you can say quarterbacks are a dime a dozen, I believe in the dynasty format when you're going to own these guys for the next 10, 15 years that you go out and get them and, be happy about what you have.
Yeah, funny enough, I had him at 24 on my list. However, saying that, I think if you want Allen, you're gonna have to get him around where you're taking him. He's not gonna last until 24. And there's some guys on my list that, quite frankly, if I were in the draft, I would take Allen over. I was trying to be somewhat non-biased and put him at 24, but I'm okay taking it.
I almost took him at pick 8, pick 10, and I couldn't let him go at pick 12. So
that's fair enough. All right, well, then we hit the turn. Is the snake style? Are you going 2 picks here, or am I going back at it?
I think I'm supposed to go 2 picks here. I think that's only fair.
I don't think so.
So I went very running back heavy, which probably is shocking the nation.
It is shocking.
But I'm going to stay with it. And I am going to go Mr. Kai Williams out of from the LA Rams. He put together a pretty phenomenal season, also only 23 years old. Had 257 points, which worked out to a 21.5 point per game average for him in our scoring. So I think Kyron Williams is a fine pick to start off the second round.
All right, and with pick 2 in the second round, I think I'm going to go super young here, take a gamble, and hope that this guy is the next Justin Jefferson, Chase, or CeeDee Lamb, and I'll go with Marvin Harrison, who is obviously yet to be drafted. Of course, you can hear us talk about him a little more in depth on our Dynasty rookie mock draft video. But I feel like he's a pretty sure thing. He's going to be the first wide receiver off the board in the NFL, 6'3", 205, over 2,400 yards last couple of years, 28 touchdowns. So I'm willing to take a gamble on him being the next big wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick. I don't have him in my top 24. I didn't put any of the rookies in my top 24, but I understand why you did. And as we get closer to the season, he could definitely appear on my top 24. So at pick 2-3, I would go with 23-year-old Chris Olave from the Saints. He's already shown an ability to produce at a semi-high level. He averaged 14.5 points last year in our scoring. And at his age and with a semi-decent quarterback with other weapons around him, I think at 2-3, I think that's a good landing spot for him.
Yeah, I like him a lot. Then at 2-4, stick with the wide receiver theme. I'm going with the big unknown rookie that blew onto the scene last year, Puka Nacua. I have no idea how to say his name. 22 years old, 105 catches, 1,486 yards, 6 touchdowns. Kind of the unknown guy out of BYU. And the big thing for me, I think there's still a little bit of a risk there because we're talking about the guy that with a short sample size. But the big thing for me was when Cooper Kupp returned, and I thought Puka would completely go away. He didn't. He maintained his production and still was the number 1 target on that team, even with Cooper returning. So I like him here.
I feel like something very strange is happening here, McCarty, because I took Kyron Williams, the running back from the Rams, and you said that he didn't make your list. And you took Puka, a wide receiver, normally who I'm higher on, and he didn't make my list. There's just something about him that scares me. So it's kind of like we flip-flopped a little bit here. I don't know what's going on in the world, but here we are. With that being said, I'm going to go back to running back, and I'm going to take Isaiah Pacheco from the Chiefs. 24 years old, averaged 15 points per game last year. I think he really kind of helped stabilize that Chiefs offense down the stretch. When the offense started looking better, he started producing more. So I think that's something that they're going to carry into this next season. They're going to continue to use him more and more. And I believe that at pick 2-5, there's some good value there.
All right, so then 2-6, I'll take the oldest player on my list, and that is Tyreek Hill. Like all he's done in the last 2 years, back-to-back 1,700-yard seasons, 119 receptions in each of those seasons, 20 touchdowns. Looks like he has no intention of slowing down anytime soon. I still think you probably, at some point, the speed's got to cut back a little bit. So I don't know if you're looking at more than 3 or 4 years tops with him, but at least for the next couple, I think you're still going to get that elite production.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that pick at all. And since you went older, I'm going to go older. And oddly enough, you went receiver. I'm going to go running back. I'm going to go Christian McCaffrey here. He scored almost 400 points last year. He outscored the next closest running back by just over 100 points in our league scoring. So although he is 27, if he can do that for another 2 or 3 years, you can put together a pretty competitive team and a win now team if you're starting up a dynasty league. So I think at this point, I think there's some value there, and you can at least build around him, and you can always back yourself up with some younger guys later in the draft.
And I think if you're a team that, let's say this isn't a start from scratch league and you're competitive, you're a playoff contender, I have no problem taking McCaffrey in the top 5, quite honestly. He's still going to be the top scoring running back next year if he's healthier, and probably for the next couple. I can see him. He's got the type of game I see him still being somewhat productive at 31, 32 years of age. Like, I think you get a few more years out of him, even though he's 27.
Well, I think the thing that helps him also is that he's been injured a couple of times. So those seasons, he didn't take the full beating that most running backs would. But yeah, I think he's built more like one of those old school running backs as well, where he's going to have some. He's gonna be able to go into his 30s.
All right, then at 2-8, I'm going to go the other Eagles wide receiver, Devontae Smith, 25. Again, I don't think he's put up numbers that blow anybody away, but he's very consistent. Last 2 years, his average 14.3 and then 15 points per game, over 1,000 yards each season, 14 touchdowns. I don't know if having A.J. Brown there helps him or hurts him. I'm not really sure. I tend to think it helps him a little bit. I don't know that he would be a true number 1 wide receiver if AJ weren't there. But whatever, even if he's as a wide receiver 2, he's a pretty safe wide receiver 2 week in, week out.
All right, so at pick 2-9, I am going to go Deebo Samuel, 28, so a little bit older. But at wide receiver, that didn't scare me as much, although he does kind of play that slash role where he does line up in the backfield. He averaged 16 points per game, missed a couple of games due to injury, which is when San Francisco went on their losing streak. But at 2-9, I like Deebo quite a bit here.
All right. 210. It started getting tricky down here because I said before this, I feel like after you get like around 20, there's about 30 guys you could interchange and it would be an okay pick, I feel like. But so for me, I'm going to go wide receiver again, and I would just take a shot on a young guy here, a guy that we both like. I think Rashee Rice in Kansas City, 23 years old, ended up last year with 79 catches, over 900 yards, 7 touchdowns. But what I like most about the season for him was more than half of his production came over the last 6 games of the season. So, the first few games, he's a rookie. He's trying to figure it out. And once he did, I think Mahomes, he became, outside of Kelsey, he became Mahomes' most comfortable weapon. And I can see that continuing to build and him getting closer to that kind of 100-yard catch year in, year out.
Rice just missed my top 24 for no other reason than there were just a couple of guys I like more. Kind of like what you said, though. When you get down to this level, there's a lot of options here, and it's kind of just who you like a little bit more than someone else. And my last pick here at 211 might surprise you a little bit. Maybe it won't. He's a guy I was really high on before the season started. 23 years old, plays for the Detroit Lions, and that's Mr. Sam Laporta. I believe when I rewatch this tape back, I'm going to kick myself in the butt. I'm pretty sure I took 3 Lions in this draft.
You did.
So, but Sam Laporta was the top scoring tight end last year. Now Kelsey missed some games, and I'm sure that's why Laporta ended up outscoring him, because it was fairly close between the two of them. Kelsey was the third highest scoring tight end in our league. But I just see great things coming from Laporta. Evan Ingram also outscored Travis Kelsey, just in case you were wondering. But so yeah, I would take Laporta at 211.
That's right where I had him. I had him at 23 overall, and again, we've talked about it before, but if you can find that tight end where he's your every week you start him, don't have to worry about it, and he gives you top 5 numbers, and he probably will for the next almost decade. The tight end spot, if you can get that, I think that's well worth taking in the top 2 rounds.
I would agree with that.
So number 24, I've got some guys higher on my list, but look, you took a quarterback at the end of round 1. I want to take one at the end of round 2, and I actually had these 2. I had Allen. If you're going to take a quarterback in the first 2 rounds, Allen was one, and the second one I would say is C.J. Stroud. Just given his age and what he did in his rookie year, I think the sky's the limit for him. And if you can find your quarterback for the next decade at pick 24, then good for you.
Yeah, no, I can't hate that pick. Stroud's another guy that just missed my top 24. I actually had Mahomes in my top 24.
Yeah, I get that.
I had Mahomes at 24. And it's interesting because at the end of our rookie section, we talked about a couple guys that both of us had on our list that didn't get picked in the 12 picks. As far as the top 24 goes, you and I were very similar. I went above 24 just in case I needed to, but most of the guys that I had listed were all older veterans who I really like in round 3 a lot more than round 2.
Sure.
2 young guys I did have on here that didn't quite make the cut, though, were A-Chain from the Dolphins, who scares me a little bit, and James Cook from the Bills, who also scares me a little bit just because I don't know if the Bills are going to consistently run enough for Cook to deserve that, top 24 status yet.
Yeah, I had a couple other guys that I'm good in the first 2 rounds. Jalen Waddle, Brandon Ayuk, Kenneth Walker from the Seahawks. I actually thought about putting Odunze in here because, you just know how much I like Odunze, but I couldn't quite do it. I could see Diggs still in the top 24. If he's sticking in Buffalo, that's fine. But there's tons of guys out there.
I had Diggs, Adams, and Kelsey all borderline here.
Yeah.
Kincaid was another guy that I was going back and forth with, but I thought that was too homerish. Although if Diggs ends up leaving Buffalo, I think Kincaid could shoot up, depending on who they replace Diggs with.
True story.
All right, that was a lot of fun. I had fun. I'm sure the fans, this is a surprise. They weren't expecting it, so I'm sure they're going to be loving it. We'll probably get, a bunch of feedback.
Oh, wait, we do have a fan on the line here. Let's see it. Yes, sir. What do you have to say?
You suck.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. That's mighty kind of you. Okay. Thank you.
I thought for sure that was not the fan I expected to hear, but we'll go with it. All right, people. Till next time. It's been fun. It's been real. Miller out.
Later.
5.
Thank you for listening to Sports Fantasies with Miller and McCarty. And be sure to catch future shows wherever you stream.
Oh, bye-bye now.